तो कैसे हैं आप लोग? अरे नहीं नहीं नहीं, मैं कैरे को कॉपी नहीं कर रहा हूँ। हाँ, कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि उसके अंदर तुम लोग वीडियो नहीं देखते हो यार। हेलो हेलो हेलो, वेलकम टू द वीडियो गाइस। और कुछ ही दिनों पहले मैंने काफ़ी बहुत ही मेहनत करके समय भाई को एक चेस मैच के लिए राज़ी किया था। और फिर हम जो चेस मैचेस हुए हमारे बीच, वो काफ़ी एंटरटेनिंग थे, बहुत मज़ा आया था। हमने यू नो कुछ ब्लेंडर्स किए, कुछ बेस्ट मूव्स किए, कुछ ऐसे आइकॉनिक मूव्स कर दिए। तो ऐसे बहुत ही मज़ा आया। और मैंने फिर सोचा कि वो यूट्यूबर कैसा है जो इस बात का फ़ायदा उठा के कंटेंट ना बना पाए, है ना? तो इसीलिए बस आज हम बस उस मैचेस को एनालाइज करेंगे और देखेंगे कि क्या हमारे बीएम का कोई कॉम्पिटिटर है या फिर वो अकेले है। ओके, सो लेट्स स्टार्ट द एनालिसिस। सो ऑन द फर्स्ट बोर्ड उन्होंने सो ऑन द फर्स्ट बोर्ड उन्होंने E4 चला। मैंने भी E5 से रिप्लाई दिया। फिर उन्होंने किंग्स गैम्बिट का सोचा, and this time I took it. He went for the bishop c4. I went for knight c6. He went knight f3. I went knight f6. And now we pushed this pawn e5. I don't know why, which was an inaccuracy, obviously. And then I made the first blunder, knight a5. I should have simply take this so that there was an attack on his bishop and he can't do anything instead of going back or pinning my knight. That was all he could have done. Anyway, I made a blunder. He gave me a check, took my castle, castle to right, right to castle. He took my right to castle. So he went for bishop takes f7. I took it with the king. He took my knight. I took this pawn with this pawn. I don't know why. मतलब मेरे को सच में नहीं आइडिया था क्यों किया मैंने ऐसा. Then he castles. I gave him a check. He went for d4, which was the best move, the only move possible. मतलब बिशप भी थे बट इतना कुछ ऐसे खास था नहीं उन सब moves में. Then instead of going back, I went for protecting this pawn. I don't know why. He gave me a check, so I do this. We exchanges the nothing we exchanged. He gave me just the free knight, that's all. Then I took that pawn and he gave me check with his queen, queen d5. I went to f8. He took my pawn with his bishop. I went rook g8. I don't know why. I just don't want it that if he takes and this happens. So I went rook g8, which was still a blunder. मतलब मैं हार ही रहा था वैसे भी. Then he gave me a check, double check with this rook and this bishop. I went to e7 and he mated me finally with this. बहुत बुरी हार थी वो वैसे। Anyway, guys, I hope you are liking the video, and if you are liking, then please make sure to hit that like button. Dislike भी दबा देंगे तो चलेगा, और कमेंट जरूर करके बताएं वीडियो में के नीचे, एंड सब्सक्राइब कर दे चैनल को। और अगर आपको मेरी वीडियोस पसंद आती है तो आप मेरे को डोनेट भी कर सकते हैं। मेरे डिस्क्रिप्शन में एक लिंक होगी, आप उस पर जाके क्लिक कर सकते हैं और डोनेट कर सकते हैं मेरे को। It would be really helpful for me to create such amazing videos again. Okay, so here comes the next board in which I was playing white, and I started with the e4, king's pawn opening, and he replied with the Sicilian defense c5. I went for knight c3. He also went for knight c6, and then moved bishop c4. He moved his e6 pawn. I moved knight f3. He moved knight g7, knight e7 to basically, I don't know, पता नहीं क्या था उनका आइडिया, मेरे को नहीं पता. I castled. He attacked me with this. So I simply took. He took, and then I took. I don't know why. नहीं लेना चाहिए था वैसे. Then he took with the knight, and since I can't take it because if I went here, this was coming. So I simply went for a3. He took one more knight. I opened the queen's diagonal and my bishops also. Then I took. He pinned my knight to the rook with his bishop. Then I gave him a check. He went for king d7. I gave him a fork and a check. So he exchanged. Basically, I exchanged my another pair of knights. That was a pretty bad move. Then he again offered me an exchange, this time with the rook. तो मैंने भी कर लिया rook exchange. Then I went for this pawn by going bishop f4. Maybe instead of, if I would have went here, suppose he makes a random move like this, I gave him a check, he goes here, and boom. Then it was a win. But ऐसा कुछ हुआ नहीं, अफसोस. Sad for me. And I went here. Then I pinned his bishop, so he moved his light bishop to the e6. So no more pin. I went for this pawn attack. Then I moved this pawn h3 because I just don't want to get mate in one. He opened this rook's diagonal, the rook's room column, you get there, by king d7, and I went for bishop a7. Worst move ever. So he basically trapped my bishop, and there was no way to save it. So I just took this pawn. At least कुछ तो लेके जाता मेरा bishop. And then he simply mated me in the following moves. Exchange, exchange, exchanges. Then I went here. He again attacked me, my rook. this, he promoted to a queen. और अब तो बस एक मेटन वन ही था फोर्थ कि बस अब कुछ और कर ही नहीं सकते. And with it, he mated me. And you know what's the fun part of it? That he mated me with his bishops and the queen. Basically, rook भी involve हो सकता है, but still, he mated me with these two bishops. And the best part was कि मैं stalemate भी हो सकता था, but उन्होंने कभी stalemate का भी चांस नहीं दिया मेरे को. मतलब stalemate तो मजा ही आ जाता. But ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं. And that's how I lost this match. Okay, so moving on to the last one here. What happened? He again went e4, e5, king's gambit, but this time I declined it. So he went for Vienna game by knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, bishop g4, pinning an attack on this queen, and bishop c4, giving an attack on this pawn and taking my right to castle. I went queen e7. I don't know why. And the best move here was c6. So that I can either go here or anywhere I want. But I didn't play that. I went for queen e castle. I take that pawn on f4. He went for d4. I pushed my g5 pawn to basically protect this pawn. Then he went for e5. So I simply took it, exchanged pawns, and I went for knight h5, which was pretty much a bad move because instead of it, I would have gone to here, given an attack on this pawn. So it was attacked by queen and a knight. But I made a mistake. And then he went for knight d5, which was a blunder. ब्लेंडर क्यों था वो मैं एनालाइज नहीं करूंगा क्योंकि मुझे भी नहीं पता क्यों था वो ब्लेंडर बट था. I gave him a check. He went back. I took that bishop. He gave me a check. I exchanged the knights and then I protected this pawn. I don't know why. I went back. He pushed it, so I exchanged the knight, the bishop and knight. He took with his queen, basically bringing back the queen in the game. I bring knight c6 because my rook was still a hanging piece. He went to attack my queen, so I basically took this like this. He took my pawn on f4, and then I again took b2 pawn to give an attack on this rook. So he basically moved his rook, and I took his bishop. Then he took with his queen, and I basically threatened a mate in one here. He protected that mate in one. I again went for taking that a2 pawn. I don't know why. He bring his rook here. basically wanted to give me a maiden one with few sacrifices and all. I could, it was basically a free rook, but still I didn't take it. भरोसा नहीं मेरे वन कब हो जाता और बेसिकली मेरा प्लान था अभी दिखाऊंगा सरप्राइज. So he gave me a check. I again went back. Then he made the biggest blender he could ever make. I mean, like मेरे साथ तो biggest blender था ये. He wanted to do a maiden one, but instead of he got one like this. और मेरे को पता था ये चीज क्यों नहीं देखेंगे ये. पता नहीं मेरे को आइडिया था कि वो नहीं देखेंगे और ऐसा ही हुआ. Okay, so guys, that's all for today. I hope आपको वीडियो अच्छी लगी हो. अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी हो तो लाइक कर दे. वीडियो को डिसलाइक भी चलेगा और चाहे तो कमेंट भी कर सकते हैं. कैसे भी कमेंट करें, मुझे अच्छा लगेगा. मैं पढ़ूंगा, सब कुछ ठीक करूंगा, इम्प्रूव करूंगा खुद को. और सब्सक्राइब कर दे चैनल को. और अगर आप मुझे डोनेट करना चाहते हैं तो मेरी डिस्क्रिप्शन में एक लिंक होगी, आप उधर क्लिक करके मेरे को डोनेट कर सकते हैं. आई होप आपको वीडियो अच्छी लगी हो. दैट्स ऑल फॉर टुडे. बाय बाय.